All right, guys, welcome to today's lesson. We're going to go over flexible dieting for sustainable weight loss. If you're not sure what flexible dieting is, that's what we're here to do today, and that's what we're going to go over, right? So, flexible dieting is a sustainable, balanced approach to weight loss that doesn't require you to cut out your favorite foods within reason. I say within reason. It works with your lifestyle, not against it, right? So most of the time when people are trying to lose weight, they take some drastic restrictive action, drastic restrictive diets, such as doing keto, such as intermittent fasting, such as going vegan or going vegetarian. All these different things, while they can help you lose weight, they're extremely restrictive and they can sometimes cause you to get burned out and end up getting stuck in that yo-yo dieting cycle where you lose 10 pounds, gain 10 pounds, lose 5 pounds, gain 20 pounds, right? So flexible dieting is a lifestyle approach. It's something that works with your lifestyle, meaning you can keep it up long term. So today, we're actually going to go over flexible dieting. We're going to go over your calories. We're going to go over your macros and anything you need to overcome food anxiety, because a lot of people struggle with food anxiety that might not even know that they struggle with that, whether that's under eating, overeating, binge eating, whatever. So let's dive in. So what exactly is food dieting? What exactly is flexible dieting? So flexible dieting is all about creating balance in your nutrition. It's all about eating in a way that's sustainable as opposed to cutting out whole food groups, right? Such as cutting out carbs or cutting out fats or having a crazy amount of protein. It's basically a balanced approach to eating for weight loss. When you're doing flexible dieting, no food is inherently off limits. It's more so about hitting your daily calorie and macro goal. Of course, that doesn't mean that you can eat whatever you want. You still have to abide by certain rules within reason. But what I practice, what I teach my clients is something called the 80-20 principle, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the next slide. But basically, having and following flexible dieting allows for variety and flexibility with structured nutrition. Keyword is structured. You still have some level of structure. It's not just eat whatever you want, whenever you want, right? So, once again, one of the myths that people have about flexible dieting is that it means you can eat whatever you want, whenever you want. That's not it. One thing that I practice myself and that I teach my clients is the 80-20 rule, meaning 80% of your food should come from nutrient-dense whole foods. And we'll go over why that is in a little bit. While the other 20% can come from foods you enjoy, foods that might be a little bit more processed. Of course, you want to limit as much processed food as possible, but you might enjoy M&Ms here and there. You might enjoy a McChicken here and there. So the 20% of the time you can enjoy your favorite foods, but the overwhelming majority of the time you do have to abide by nutrient-dense whole foods. And contrary to popular belief, eating nutrient-dense whole foods does not need to be boring. It doesn't need to be disgusting. It doesn't need to be bland. You don't need to just eat chicken and broccoli all the time. There's so many different ways to cook delicious and nutritious foods and hit your goals at the same time, right? So doing this helps prevent, following this 80-20 rule, it helps prevent diet burnout and it helps you maintain and sustain long-term success, right? So as opposed to cutting out carbs and being like, oh, I miss bread so much, I need some rice, I need this. As opposed to doing that, you're able to fit it into your diet weekly, once or twice a week, meaning you don't miss out on anything, meaning you don't feel restrictive, meaning you can stick to the way you eat long-term. Flexible dieting is more so about a lifestyle approach as opposed to a quick weight loss trend, right? Instead of saying, oh, I'm going to cut out carbs for 90 days or, oh, I'm going to do intermittent fasting for this many days. Instead of doing that, once you learn flexible dieting and you apply it to your life, you can essentially lose weight in a sustainable, healthy manner. Keyword, sustainable and healthy. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how to dial in your macros and your calories. This is very important when losing weight. Macros and calories are important, but I do want you to understand that it's not the end all be all in weight loss. A huge part of weight loss is insulin and insulin resistance, which is why flexible dieting has you control your insulin by limiting the amount of processed food you eat. When you're following flexible dieting and you're following this 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the time you're eating processed whole foods lean meat, vegetables, whole grains. You're eating foods that don't spike your insulin. It's when you do these restrictive diets like intermittent fasting or cutting out carbs or going vegan. When you do these restrictive diets, you can still eat processed foods that fit into those things. I know a lot of people who practice intermittent fasting, but they're still eating processed foods. I know plenty of people who are vegan, but they're still eating processed foods, right? Think about the fact that there are overweight vegans that exist or overweight vegetarians. That's because they're still not only eating nutrient dense foods, whole grains, lean meat. They're still eating a lot of processed foods. So you want to limit processed foods to a degree. So once again, dialing in your calories and your macros is important, but you don't want to overlook the quality of food. It's not so much more, it's not always about the quantity, it's also about the quality, which is why flexible dieting is so important. So that being said, there's a bunch of different ways to calculate your calories, right? Your daily calories, your daily maintenance calories, is the number of calories that your body needs daily to maintain its current weight, right? You can use manual formulas like the Mifflin, St. Jour, or Harris-Benedict formula. This right here, I'm not going to read it out to you. You can read it yourself. So it's 10 times your weight in kilograms plus 6.25 times your height in centimeters minus 5 times your age in years plus 5 for men or minus 161 for women. So you can use this to find your daily maintenance calories. I don't know about you, but that's a lot of math. Nowadays, you have a lot of different tools you can use, such as MyFitnessPal. If you download an app like MyFitnessPal, you can actually just go through, input your age, input your sex or gender, whichever one you want to refer to it as, input your activity levels, and input all these little formulas. And then from that, you'll find out, it'll give you what your daily maintenance calories should be. The thing with these is sometimes they can be accurate and sometimes they can be inaccurate. So what I preach and what I actually want clients to do, most clients that come into my program, I have them do this. For the first 2 weeks, I just have them track everything they're eating. You don't worry about how many calories you're eating, how much macros. I really just have them track how much they're eating every single day. If you track for 2 weeks and after 2 weeks you notice that your weight has gone up, that means you've been eating above your daily maintenance calories. If you notice that your weight has gone down, that means you've more than likely been eating below your daily maintenance calories. If you notice your weight stays the same, then more than likely you found your maintenance calories. In my opinion, that's the best method of finding your maintenance calories, because a lot of people tend to either overestimate or underestimate how active they are. That plays a huge factor into your daily maintenance calories, right? So there's a lot of different factors that affect those calories. So that's one. I've just given you 3 ways you can find your daily maintenance. You can either use this formula or other formulas like it. You can use MyFitnessPal, or you can use other calculators online. But keep in mind that you have to give it very accurate information, because it does rely on the information you give it. So what I recommend is the third method that I taught you, the method where you track for about 2 weeks and basically see how your body reacts to tracking. So track how many calories you're having every day for 14 days. If you increase in weight, you've been eating in a surplus. If you decrease in weight, you've been eating in a deficit. And from there, if you see that you've increased the weight, the next step would simply be to decrease those calories. Let's say you've been eating at 2,000 calories for 2 weeks and you've gained a pound or 2 pounds. The next step would be to decrease those calories by about 250 to 500 and then see how your body reacts. If the next 2 weeks you still gain weight, that means you're still in a surplus. If the next 2 weeks your weight stays the same, that means now you found your maintenance. I know that was a lot. Feel free to rewind this, watch it again, or even shoot me a message with any questions you have. I'm more than happy to answer. In terms of creating a calorie deficit for weight loss, one of the biggest mistakes that people do is they drastically or aggressively drop their calories, meaning they eat significantly less than they need to. You only need to reduce your calories by 200 to 500 calories a day from maintenance. So if your maintenance calories are 2,000 calories per day, you really only need to decrease to about 1,700 to 1,500 calories. And keep in mind, 3,500 calories equals to 1 pound. So if you're decreasing by 500 calories a week, even without exercise, you should be able to lose a pound a week if you're decreasing your calories by 500, right? So, and of course, these are general guidelines. These are general guidelines because some people have their daily maintenance, which is already at about 1,500, or maybe their daily maintenance has been 1,200. In those cases, you might not want to decrease your calories even further because eventually you'll need to barely be eating to see any results. So these are general guidelines. Of course, if you're in my program, if you're working with me as a coach, I'd be giving you these calories myself. I would be calculating this for you and telling you exactly what you need to be eating, right? Now, once again, the biggest mistake people make when they're trying to lose weight is they jump into aggressive deficits. And while this will work initially, while you will lose weight initially, right? Eventually, it'll slow your metabolism down to a point where you can't lose any more weight. You would have to drop your calories even more aggressively to start losing weight. And of course, eventually, you start feeling fatigued and you start losing muscle. When you lose muscle, once again, that impacts your metabolism, which keeps you from losing fat the way you want to lose fat. So I personally recommend, not only even me, just any coach you speak to that tells you to drop your calories by more than 500, you should walk away. They probably don't know what they're talking about. The most you should ever decrease your calories by is 500 per day. Because keep in mind, if you're in a 500 calorie deficit per day, then in a week you're projected to lose a pound. If you're in a 500 calorie deficit per day and you're more active and you're working out, you should lose minimum a pound a week. That's a minimum. You don't need to do more than 500 calories. So we've discussed calories. So the next thing is macronutrients, right? Macros, otherwise known as macronutrients, these are the building blocks of your body, right? You have protein, which helps build and maintain muscle. You need protein in your diet. I've been a coach for over 8 years. I know from experience, I know from having clients track calories, that most people don't consume enough protein. You do need protein in your diet. You also need fats, healthy amounts of fat in your diet. Fat supports both hormones and brain function, right? Of course, you also need carbs. Some people, they're able to do keto for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. That's fine for them. But the thing is, carbs provides energy for your workout and your daily life. Carbs is where most people derive their energy. It's a source of fuel for your body, right? So you do need some form of carbs in your body. So if you want to cut out carbs, you want to do low carbs, that's fine, but you have to be smart about what you're doing. Carbs do provide energy for your workouts and daily life. And if you're not aware, keto is where you essentially take out carbs from your diet. It's not sustainable. You're basically you're removing something that's essential for your bodily functions. So you need a good proportion of protein, fat, and carbs to lead a healthy, sustainable lifestyle. So in terms of tracking your macros, of course, when you're aiming to lose weight, aiming to lose fat, or even build muscle, you should track your macros and calories, right? Tracking your calories is very simple. Tracking your macros is very simple. I'm actually going to create a separate, very in-depth tutorial on that. It's actually much simpler than people think. So I'm going to create another tutorial, and I'll have it in the modules in the community. So basically, to track these, you first set your goals. You set your daily calorie goals, and then from there, you use that to set your daily macronutrient goals, right? You input them in either MyFitnessPal, any calorie tracking app you have, and then you have to make sure you're consistent. Typically with most people, rather than giving them a strict number, I give them a range. So let's say I might give them a range of 120 to 160 grams of protein per day. If you fall within that range, you're good. If you have too much more, that might be an issue. If you have way less, that's definitely an issue. So I would recommend having a range of macronutrients to stay within. For most women, I recommend having a minimum of 50 grams of fat. Especially for women, fats are essential for hormonal function. You don't want to end up messing up your hormones because you're cutting out specific macronutrients, right? So there are different proportions that I recommend, regardless if you're looking to build muscle or if you're looking to lose fat, right? So macronutrient proportions for fat loss. I recommend when you're trying to lose fat, that 25 to 35% of your daily calories come from protein. I also recommend that 20 to 30% of your total calories come from fat. This is when you're trying to lose fat. And then, of course, I would recommend you fill the remainder of your calories with carbs, meaning that should be about 30 to 40%, right? So once you have your calories, now you can do the math and find out what the proportions are. Most apps, for example, if you're in my program, I will give you these numbers. I'll give you the range you should be in, so you don't have to worry about finding those out. I give them to you. My job is to make your life easier. If you're not in my program, or if you're long gone from my program, you can use an app like MyFitnessPal. And once you input all the information, it'll give you that range, and it'll even ask you for feedback. Is this too high for you? Is this too low for you? A lot of this is adjusting as you go, right? My job here is to make your life as simple as possible. So if there's anything that I'm telling you that doesn't make sense or that you need more clarification, as always, leave a message and I'm more than happy to answer. Now, macronutrients for muscle gain are very similar. Once again, protein is very essential. I always recommend you start with protein first and then you transition to fats and carbs. When you're trying to build muscle, your daily protein should be about 25 to 30% of your calories. Your daily carbs should be about 55 to 60 because you need that energy. When you're trying to build muscle, you'll be working out more intensely, you'll be working out a lot harder, so you need those carbs for fuel, right? And then of course, fats should make up about 15 to 20% of your daily calories. When you're building muscle, the focus shifts a little bit. You still want to get enough protein, but carbs take on a larger role. They're helping fuel your workouts and promote recovery. So of course, you need to increase fats a little bit more. And then fats, of course, need to stay moderate because they do help with hormonal health. What's next? Now, we talked earlier about calories, we talked about macros, we talked about insulin resistance and how eating processed foods messes with that and how that also contributes to fat loss and fat gain. Now, I want to talk more about foods that work with your metabolism. So, certain foods decrease your metabolism, some foods increase your metabolism. We want to focus on whole, nutrient-dense foods like protein-rich foods like chicken, protein-rich foods like fish, legumes. All of these have a high thermic effect. Thermic effect is essentially your body working to burn these, to break down these foods, right? Whenever you eat something, your body has to work to break these down. Certain foods have a higher thermic effect, meaning your bodies are burning more calories to break them down. Certain foods have a low thermic effect, meaning your body really doesn't work that much hard to break them down, right? So the foods that your body doesn't have to work as hard are processed foods, right? You want to eat whole foods, lean meats, vegetable, fruits, whole grains, foods that are high in thermic, foods that have a high thermic effect. The reason for that, once again, is because your body is working harder to break them down. So choose nutrient-dense food. You also want to stay away from highly processed foods because they actually slow down your metabolism, right? They provide little to no nutritional benefits. They might not have enough protein, they might not have enough carbs, they might not have enough fats, but all they do, while they might be high in carbs, right? They actually will be typically high in carbs, meaning that they cause insulin spikes and eventually cause insulin resistance, which eventually makes it harder for you to lose fat. Not only does it make it easy for you to store fat, it makes it harder for you to lose fat. So you want to stay away from these kind of foods. You want to stay away from processed foods, sugar-heavy, nutrient-poor foods, right? You want to stay away from sugary drinks that have empty calories and slow down your progress. You want to stay away from alcohol because alcohol literally inhibits fat loss and recovery. Your body cannot break down the protein that it eats. It can't break down the carbs. It can't break down the fats until it removes all the alcohol from your system because alcohol literally has no nutritional benefits. Now that we know this goes back to what I mentioned earlier, the 80-20 principle. For most people, asking them to give up their favorite foods, if you like, I love M&Ms, asking somebody to give up their favorite foods if they want to weigh the way they want to weigh, if they want to look their best way, that's very restrictive, right? So what we practice with flexible dieting, as opposed to having an M&M every single day or 3 times a day or 4 times or 3 times a week, 4 times a week, as opposed to having Starbucks every day, as opposed to having pizza or McDonald's every day or multiple times a week. I recommend having it once a week. Now, it doesn't have to be a cheat meal. I don't really subscribe or believe in cheat meals. Food should not be cheating. Once you learn how to eat, your palate changes, your taste buds change. You start to like healthy food. You start to like vegetables, right? So it's not a cheat meal. It's essentially just you still fitting in your favorite foods. And I promise you, once you start doing this, once you start limiting how often you have it, it's not a reward, but it's more so I enjoy eating this, but I know I can't have it every day. So I'm going to leave it for maybe once a week and I'll get to enjoy it, right? There's some things that you know are contradictory to your progress, right? Let's say, for example, if you would like to be a professional athlete, but you also enjoy smoking weed every day. Smoking weed is contradictory to your progress as a professional athlete. So you have to pick and choose what you want to accomplish. Do you want to sit at home every day and smoke weed, or do you want to be a professional athlete? So sometimes you have to limit, right, what you do for the greater good. If your goal is to lose fat and fit in those clothes in your closet and look good at the beach and take your shirt off at the pool and feel confident, then you have to give some things up. Doesn't mean you have to give them up forever, but you do have to have them in moderation. You can't be drinking alcohol every day. You can't have a glass of wine every day. You can't go out every weekend. Special occasions, birthdays, weddings, celebrations, cool. Go ahead and have fun, but you can't have them every day. I hope that makes sense, right? These type of things, they slow your metabolism down. Not only do they increase insulin resistance, which makes it easier for your body to store fat, they also slow your metabolism down, right? Foods that have a higher thermic effect, they speed your metabolism down. So depending what you eat, you're actually making it easier for you to burn calories and lose fat. Now, fasting for fat loss is a thing. Some people do fast for fat loss. You can do that. It's not required, but it's something that can also help, right? There's different ways of fasting for fat loss, and there's different benefits to fasting for fat loss. For one, fasting is a way to control your calorie intake without having to constantly track. If you normally wake up at 6 a.m. and you eat from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. when you go to sleep, of course you'll be eating a lot more versus if you restrict yourself to eating from, let's say, 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Of course, naturally you'll be eating a lot less, right? Fasting is also known to improve insulin sensitivity, which may enhance fat burning, right? It controls your calorie intake without you having to track it all the time. And then, of course, it improves insulin sensitivity, which may help your body tap into stored fat for energy, right? So you don't have to fast, but it is an option for you. Personally, most days I practice intermittent fasting. It simplifies my life, and there's so many more benefits aside from just calories. For example, I'm sure you typically eat lunch midday, which gives you that midday slump where you really just want to take a nap and just recover before you have productivity. So by fasting, you have that increased productivity throughout the whole day. You don't have that slump. You don't feel sluggish. You actually feel good the whole day. And then when you eat, you actually feel good as well. So there's different kinds of fasts that you can do, such as the 16-8 method. Essentially, you're not eating for 16 hours, and then you eat for 8 hours. And then you have a period, an 8-hour eating period where you're actually able to eat. There's also OMAD, which is 1 meal a day, which is essentially eating 1 meal a day, right? There's another one where you could abstain from eating any solid foods until noon. So you could have coffee, you could have an energy drink if you want, you could have water, you could have a maybe not a smoothie, but you can abstain from eating solid foods until noon that day. Now, I should preface by saying that just because you're fasting doesn't mean you're automatically eating less calories, right? Because sometimes it's about quality, but it's also about quantity. Sometimes just because you're in that fasting period, you're eating less quantity, but certain foods are low quality. Certain low quality foods are low in quantity, or low in size, but they're high in quantity. So let's take, for example, if you have a slice of Meat Lover's pizza. It's one slice of pizza, but that single pizza could be about 600-700 calories. Let's say you have a mini cheesecake. I love cheesecake, or even a muffin, or a donut, right? Most donuts are going to range anywhere from 200 to 400 calories. So if you're fasting all day and then you choose to eat 3 donuts, that's already more than half your calories for the day. So you still have to be smart about what you're eating, even when you're fasting. Once again, it's quality over quantity. You still want to opt for good, nutrient-dense foods. You still want to opt for foods that work with your metabolism as opposed to against. Does that make sense? Cool. Now, the last section of this is overcoming food anxiety, which feeds both into undereating and overeating. Many people struggle with food anxiety, and they either don't know or they are aware, right? So food anxiety is essentially, it happens when you're afraid that certain foods will ruin your progress. And this can lead to either restrictive eating, which is undereating, or it can even lead to binge eating or overeating, right? Of course, none of that is beneficial when you're trying to lose weight. None of that is beneficial when you're trying to lose fat, because it stalls fat loss and it harms your metabolism. So in general, no food is off limit. I want you to get this through your head. No food is off limit. There's no good or bad food. Food is just food. Food is fuel. Food can be enjoyable, or it can be, this is not my favorite food, right? But no food is necessarily bad. I've never seen a burger kill, I've never seen a burger kill someone. Eating a burger will not kill you, but over consuming certain foods might lead to certain health issues. So once again, it's all about that balance, right? You have to know that different people's bodies react to different foods, right? I might be sensitive to dairy. I might be sensitive to gluten. I might be allergic to certain foods. So it's all about finding how your body reacts to certain foods and adapting it, right? I recommend keeping track of your food, which if you're a client in Tank Fitness, I already tell you to keep track of your food every day. I recommend keeping a food journal. That way you understand how specific things you eat make you feel, right? So food anxiety stems from a variety of different places. For some people, that's childhood trauma. For some people, that's just traumatic life events. For some people, it's just psychological factors. But the key, especially when trying to lose weight, is overcoming these food anxieties and understanding that food is fuel and seeing it as fuel. Food is necessary. I've met so many clients, I've met so many people that come into the program already under eating. They're eating less than 1,000 calories a day. No adult should be eating less than 1,000 calories a day. If you focus on eating nutrient-dense whole foods instead of processed foods, essentially you can have a good balance of anything. There is no good or bad food. So how do we overcome food anxiety? I think I already went over this, why undereating is harmful. It slows down your metabolism. It leads to muscle loss. And then, of course, it can trigger that binge eating cycle, which is detrimental to fat loss. So now that we know that, how do we overcome food anxiety? The first thing is you need to focus on overall progress, not single meals. Focus on making progress. Focus on eating whole foods. Focus on incorporating. Rather than focusing on removing things from your diet, focus on adding things to your diet, right? You have to shift your mindset. Learn to view food as fuel and focus on your overall progress. Understand that one meal won't derail progress. It's you have to look at the bigger picture. If I went out today and I had a slice of pizza, that's not going to ruin my progress. You're not a bodybuilder, right? If you were a bodybuilder that had a specific timeline for a show and your nutrition was so dialed in that every single piece of food mattered, that's a different story, right? But you're not a bodybuilder. You're just looking to lose a couple of pounds and look your best. So one food will not derail your progress. If you mess up, it's okay. If you ever mess up and you eat something that you're not supposed to eat, that's fine. We're practicing flexible dieting. Get yourself back on the wagon. Have some nutritious food the next time, right? Don't beat yourself up because you had a cookie at work or they had donuts and you had a donut. That's fine. Don't beat yourself up. Just make the necessary adjustment. Put the necessary things in place so that next time that doesn't happen. Next, you want to practice intuitive eating alongside flexible eating, right? So Eat when you're hungry. Don't stress eat. Eat when you're hungry. Don't eat because you're bored. Don't eat because you're stressed. And ask yourself, before you eat, ask yourself, why am I eating? Am I actually hungry? Am I just eating because I'm stressed? Am I eating because I'm bored? Am I eating because I am anxious and I'm trying to cope with something? Ask yourself these. This is intuitive eating, being aware of why you're doing specific things. So many people eat because they're stressed. So many people eat because they're bored. So many people eat because they're in awkward situations. Once you have that awareness, once you're aware of why you're eating specific things, now you're able to break it, right? You got to learn how to enjoy food without guilt. You shouldn't be guilty. I don't believe in or subscribe to cheat meals because this is not a test. Food is not a test. Eating is not a test. You're not cheating on your significant other by eating. Enjoy your food and practice mindful eating, intuitive eating, and flexible dieting. Right. We covered a lot. So just to kind of recap everything we've talked about, we went over calories and macros. I'm going to make in-depth training on how to use the Tank Fitness app to track your calories and your macros. We went over foods that support your metabolism and foods that work against your metabolism. We went over fasting as a tool for fat loss, and we went over how to break free from food anxiety, right? So that's it for this lesson on flexible dieting. If you have any questions, shoot me a message. I am happy to help. And make sure you make sure you comment in the community, make sure you comment in the group what your thoughts on this were, and look out for the next module in a couple of days.